So it's so lovely, Meena, for us to have this opportunity to have a dialogue. We decided, I think, that we'd have this session as a conversation between the two of us, because we started such a rich conversation when we met that we thought probably other people would benefit from being part of that conversation.
I hope so.
So I'm really happy and very indebted to your wise insights that will contribute to this discussion today. I was just wondering, perhaps if you could start by just talking to people a little bit about your organization, just to set the context.
Sure. First of all, I want to thank you for having me here. And I must also admit that I'm very nervous. A room full of academics makes me very nervous always. Okay, so a brief background. You can cut me off, because I when somebody asks me to talk about the project, I just go on and on and on and on. So please feel free to say, all right, enough. We've had enough. Let's move on. The foundation was set up, the Seagull Foundation for the Arts was set up in 1987 as an arts foundation. And we began by promoting the arts, particularly the arts that did not get space in the mainstream. So whether it was theater or, visual arts, performance, music, etc. And that led to publishing in the arts and so on and so forth, which is an entire separate entity. Seagull Books, which of course is not the non-profit part, but it's we're publishing and distributing across the world, and Chicago University Press distributes all our books. The projects that bring us here today, PeaceWorks, that was set up, the impetus of that project came from the 2002 Gujarat riots. I mean, we've had, communal riots in the country even before that, but having some of us who were part of the organization at the decision-making and, project setting up level, that's a separate generation. We grew up in an extremely, secularism-focused India at that time, which of course over the years has changed drastically. And the Gujarat riots actually, proved to be some sort of a turning point for some of us within the organization. And we felt it was very important to talk to young minds about issues of tolerance and learning to live with difference and, communal harmony and so on and so forth. And because it was, I can say that it was a very impulsive setting up of the project, impulsive reaction to what was happening the other side of the country, where we live in Bengal, you don't see much of, because it's fairly, Bengal is not a place which sees too much of communal tension, which is also changing now, but historically, apart from the 1948 post-partition riots, we haven't seen too much of conflicts between communities over here. So when we first started the project, we actually had a library for the arts in our space. So it was a logical thing to do to take films into schools, because, we are an arts foundation. Arts is a very strong medium to, particularly when you want to, inspire empathy and so on and so forth. What could be better than using literature and the arts? So we began by taking films into schools and holding discussions around them. And I think we covered hundreds of schools doing this with hundreds of films. And one thing led to the other, and then theater came into the purview of our work, and because we wanted to do more long-term engagement, beyond just a 1 hour, 2 hour screening and a 40-minute or 1.5 hour discussion. So that led to doing theater workshops around issues of, initially we were actually only talking communal harmony. So theater workshops around that, bringing participants from very diverse backgrounds together, because that's an opportunity that the audience that we work with, which is the what we call the elite schools, children who come from privileged background and don't have a certain exposure to the other side of life, they don't get the opportunity to interact with children from very diverse backgrounds. So we deliberately try to bring them together in the workshop mode. And we brought some teacher training in because we also wanted teachers to, replicate what we were trying to do with students by going into schools. Over the years, the issue of communal harmony grew into what we call the umbrella of learning to live with difference. So whether, we're talking about religious difference, socioeconomic difference between peers, between siblings, talking about resolving conflicts, talking about, mindsets, where they come from, violence and non-violence, both, so on and so forth. And that again led to a certain, it's been 20 years. So, with every project, you kind of, you start by feeling that, there's something meaningful happening here. And then you reach a stage where you start feeling restless and you ask yourself, but are we achieving anything? Because all of this is such long-term work. And the major restlessness actually came from the fact that, when you're working in the workshop mode, you're at one time, you're only working with about 30, 35 students, not more than that. And we're a small team. For various reasons, we are not being able to expand because our funding actually ended in 2009 and we are still here somehow. So, so that, organically, the logical conclusion to that restlessness was to work with educators, because they're the ones who are constantly in touch with, students, and it's a dailiness for them. And that led to also wanting to, move beyond the arts and, bring in the purview of history education. The logic behind that being also that, when we are talking about communal harmony and the Hindu-Muslim issue, the partition plays a very prominent role, right? And it's something that's not discussed within the education system at all. Recently, of course, it's come into the high school curriculum, but that means that, it's elective. History is studied by students at the high school, only those who choose to pursue history for further studies. So at the below grade 10 level, there are a lot of gaps in the history curriculum. There are a lot of reasons that lead to a certain mindset, which is creating huge problems within the country. That's not the only problem. Of course, there are several other problems, but this is feeding into it. So all of these facts put together led to, setting up the, it began with a project that we did with Nerve Center in Northern Ireland called Teaching Divided Histories. They had approached us to become their international partners, and they were working with the Irish conflict. So our, naturally our response was that, it's a subject that's not going to have any takers within our education system because it doesn't form part of the curriculum, but you allow us to take your concepts and work with the partition. We would very much like to be part of it. And they got very excited about that. And that was kind of the launching pad for us to also have the courage to, set up this History Teachers Network. And now it's the History for Peace project that has kind of taken up is taking up most of our time and energy and resources and all of that very happily. And at the PeaceWorks project, it's become a very clear division. PeaceWorks works with students and History for Peace working for teachers. And we're largely doing human rights education at the PeaceWorks project because we're the India partners for the Anne Frank Museum in Amsterdam. So that's the core, but then that leads to all kinds of other conversations that are very pertinent and relevant to our realities here.
So that all sounds so impressive, and also just your sustainability is really admirable. The fact that you've kept going when the funding disappeared, and I know that many of us who are or who have worked with NGOs will know that it's a constant pressure to try to keep funding to keep going. But there's clearly something that's at the heart of the values, or what it is that keeps you going. Would you be able to articulate that? What would you say drives you? What's at the heart of what you do? What are your core beliefs, would you say?
Okay, I'm going to try. It's a very huge question, but I think the basic philosophy is as far I'm speaking in terms of everything that we do at the organization. The basic philosophy stems from responding to the human condition. That's one thing, and also aspiring to a certain way of being that is conducive to healthy society, to peace, to respect for the other, to a certain kind of understanding that feeds into all the work that we call peace building, Yeah, so if I had to put it very briefly, this is how I would, kind of phrase it.
And within CPERG, we talk a lot about structural and cultural violence and how that finds its way into systems of schooling, and what's the relationship between peace education and the institution in which it's housed, and how can peace education avoid replicating structural and cultural violence within the systems that it's part of. I wonder, is that something that you've thought about with the work that you're doing, or do you see those tensions?
Yes, I suppose it's very prevalent. See, because also, first of all, I think this whole the term peace education, we believe that of course, there is a structure to it and institutions are required, but there's much more to it. And it needs to go beyond, it needs to be a dailiness, right? Because if you don't treat peace education as a dailiness at the individual level, there's only so much that one can achieve. And what I'm trying to say over here is, which is something that we do encounter often, and this is, I suppose, a reality for everybody who works with students. It's, there is a certain level of work that you're doing within the institution, and you have X number of hours with your young minds, right? And then they're going back into their families and into their communities. And it's very often they are at loggerheads with the beliefs there are at complete loggerheads at what you are doing within the system that you are nurturing, right? So if you don't address that issue, then the question remains that what is the impact that eventually you are going to have, right? So that's one issue that is always that's very prevalent at the back of our minds when we either facilitate anything or design any projects. For example, we're working with teachers. Now, you can hand over the best resource to the teacher, and you can provide interactions with the most amazing public intellectuals and scholars and so on and so forth, right? But what are you going to do about the inherent bias that the teacher is going to walk into the classroom with? Right?
Yeah.
None of what you do is really going to go a very long way. And there are no easy answers to this, because you're talking about you're talking about mindsets that are stemming from structural and cultural violence, right?
Yeah.
Not and often in a very kind of in a very silently creeping into your subconscious way.
Yeah.
Where often we ourselves as individuals are not aware of, that we hold certain certain ideas, beliefs within ourselves.
Yeah, and it's an interesting conundrum, isn't it? Because you've been on a very similar journey to myself, in that I started out working with children, and then thought, okay, so if I can work with teachers, then ultimately the values, the knowledge, the piecework will be extended, because every teacher who's influenced in this direction will then be having influence over the children that they meet, not just that year, but in future years. And I think over the years, I've come to reflect on, first of all, what is my mandate? What is my warrant for wanting to get into the soul of teachers? Yeah. And so Stephen Ball talks about this, that there is a battle for the souls of teachers going on within global systems of education at the moment, that everybody has their own idea of what the future should look like, and therefore what teachers should do. And everybody believes that it's about the person of the teacher. It's about who they are. It's about their holistic whole being. It's about how they present in the classroom that will achieve this. And I've often tried to articulate for myself why it is that I feel that my particular version of the piecework that I do should become part of somebody's being, not just part of their professional job, but also part of who they are. Is that something that you think about?
No, I think that is quite impossible, isn't it? And perhaps perhaps not required, I would say, because each individual is going to bring their version of their truth, right? Which is important, because you don't want you don't want the same kind of message going out there, right? It's not even possible, because realities are different, social conditions are different, political conditions are different, and one has to respond to what the immediate concerns and realities of the space that you're working in is. So, for example, in a country like India, when we are doing we are conducting a project in Calcutta, and if we take the same project to, say, Kashmir or to the south of India, it is never going to be the same thing, because there is so much diversity, right? So, but there's one common thread.
That's what I was going to say. What is this thing called peace that we sort of hold on to as universal? Do you articulate that in your work?
Yeah, the central idea is that the idea of questioning, questioning your own beliefs, inspiring your students to question not just beliefs, but even something as simple as what is being delivered from the textbook, right?
A critical mindset, would you say?
Critical mindset, which is I'm struggling to understand this term, but I use it very often myself too. What is a critical mindset? I don't know, honestly. It's a quest, maybe someday I will finally understand it. But yes, this is, for lack of any other term to, try and explain this. It is, this is what you, for both teachers and students, I feel that if we, where our work is concerned, if we achieve some of that, this idea of not just questioning, but also knowing what questions, because, that's important. I mean, what direction your questioning is going to take is also as important as this practice of, the habit of questioning.
So, yeah, they're so interesting, because these are the conversations that I'm having in my supervisions at the moment. These are exactly the questions that we've been asking, and we've been playing with this idea of critical peace education, because with the work of Manisha Bajaj and others, critical peace education is something that's very valued in our field, and it's kind of seen as peace education Mark II, where instead of a kind of a version of peace education that's grounded in universal peace or in psychology or in a sort of an idea that there is one peace that we all should adhere to. Critical peace education does exactly what you say, where it's about having asking the right questions and not adopting a particular version of truth, but being able to defend your own version of truth whilst respecting the version of truth of other people. And I can see how in your work with history and the arts and so on, that you might have some very rich experiences of supporting young people to engage in that critique, but in quite holistic ways. Because one of the things that I've critiqued in my work is where critical peace education becomes very abstract, and it becomes an intellectual exercise, cut off from emotion or from spirit or from being. I also worry when the focus is on disadvantage to youth, to realize, to become aware of, to have their consciousness raised of the oppression that surrounds them, as if somehow they were the ones who can bring about change, when actually it's the children of the decision makers, the future decision makers, who are going to be able to make these changes. And potentially they don't do the same critical work, because why would they? And so I think there's a couple of questions here. One is about, how do you avoid that kind of over intellectualization, being able to deconstruct everything, but not actually having any sort of answers or responses or any vision for the future on the one hand. And then the other question is, how do you avoid this becoming just the domain of the disadvantaged, the disenfranchised? How do we get people who have everything to gain from power structures, how do we get them to do this critical work? So two areas there.
Okay, so first, the latter question. It's strange that you ask this, because this has been, this has been the bane of our funding wars. So we only work with the private schools, right? We're not working with any government schools. I mean, we did for a long period of time. We were running a project with the Calcutta Police, but that was one part. But the major part of our work is with the private schools, and this is precisely the reason what you're talking about, because we're very judgmental when it comes to the privileged young people. We very flippantly say that, oh, their focus is making money, and this is all they're interested in, and it's their careers, and this and that, and the other. But we're not creating a space for them to explore other options that they may be interested in, because the school system has become so geared to, has always been actually, and is increasingly remaining the same, is very competitive. It's geared towards that Ivy League college and that particular university and the engineering degree and so on and so forth. There's also parental and societal pressure that, we still have this problem over here that students who want to take up development work or the social sciences, the parents discourage them. But all that aside, the fact that there is a world beyond their own realities is an exposure that they are not getting at all, which is the reason, and whether we like it or not, these are the youngsters who end up, holding positions of power, which gives them the means to affect change. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, everything does, again, whether we like it or not, it does boil down to the economics, right? Because like you just said that, there are so many nonprofit organizations, that wonderful projects that fold up because of a lack of funding. Mm. And there's this entire parallel space called the CSR, the corporate social responsibility, where, there's a huge amount of resources that are available, but they're not going where, I don't know if it's the right thing to say for me, but I will still nevertheless say it. They're not going to the right spaces. There are big industrial houses that are building temples as a CSR initiative. Nothing wrong with it, but you know what I mean. We have enough temples. There's need in the country for a lot of other things. So this is just one example. So we hope that the few students that we get to interact with through the work that we are doing, who come from a certain setup where they will have the opportunity to be able to, bring about some change. We hope that we are making a dent there, and in the future, they will be change makers. It's difficult to we've seen some examples, but this work is so long term. Yeah. That it's difficult to say that, hey, there was this particular student, this is what he's doing, and he was part of our project. It's quite impossible. Yeah. Yeah.
But you mentioned when you started that this is about long-term change, and sometimes I feel pessimistic about that, because I think over that long period of time, young people are subject to so many competing influences. Things become very diffuse, and so I worry. But then on the other hand, I do notice that young people are beginning to live life very differently to how my generation, for example, lived life. And I think there are increasing numbers of young people who are relatively wealthy or privileged, who are actually choosing not to go down the same route as their parents, and who are thinking about the planet and about humanity, and who are downscaling, and who are thinking about quality of life and the value of their time, rather than about material security all the time.
That's very encouraging. But there's this other reality. There is this, of course, which is very important part of you know, what people like us, the work that people like us are doing. But there's another reality. For example, here in India today, over the past decade or so, we've seen so much of polarization within, you know, it's seeped into the community, like within families. I mean, I see it myself within my own family, you know, that friends, people you knew, you've grown up with, and suddenly you realize, my God, the ideologies have either changed or they were just there and they're surfaced now. So I feel very strongly that even, you know, if every young student that you know, that crosses paths with work of this nature, if they can even change the course of the conversation at their dining table, that's something.
Yeah,
You know?
Yeah. I'm actually wondering whether the people who are with us today might have some questions or reflections based on what we've been discussing. So should we have a go at sort of summing up? Perhaps if I start and then come in, Meena, if I've missed anything or said it not quite right. But I think we've been talking about the long-term sustainability of this work and of overcoming some of the challenges of the NGO sector in order to be doing this work in the over the long term, and about the flexibility that requires. We've been talking about the values that sustain the work and the core of peace education being not about a particular universal idea of peace, but being around a mindset to be able to engage with difference and to critique and to see oppressive power structures where they exist, and to wish to make a difference, and to engage with history, including difficult conversations about problematic history within a nation state, and to engage with the arts in order to encourage young people to embody experience and emotion around some of these big questions, so that it doesn't just become an abstract academic theoretical debate.
Absolutely.
We've also been talking about teachers and about the extent to which they can or should live the values of peace, or whether actually it's part of their professional lives, and what they need to know and be able to do, and what values they need to have in order to carry out their jobs as peace educators. Is there anything else that you wanted to foreground, Meena, in the summary that I've just given?
I think you've pretty much covered everything that we kind of touched upon. Okay. There are, of course, so many larger issues, you know. But...
you did also speak about the importance of working with wealthy youngsters, not just with the poor. We both sort of spoke about how you know, really we need to move towards degrowth, don't we? It's actually it's for people of wealth and advantage to begin to change their own lifestyles in order to work towards greater equity. Whereas I think certainly in the 20th century and in ongoing development discourse, sort of UN and all the rest of it, the World Bank and so on, it's about how do we focus on the poor? How do we get them to be able to share our lifestyles? Whereas I think we know that for the sustainability of the planet, actually, it's the locus of change isn't amongst the poor. The locus of change is amongst the wealthy, and around people's ideas of what they're entitled to, and the extent to which we're thinking forward for future generations. What is our relationship with people yet to be born?
Also, I think bringing the two worlds together, because, you know, any education which is only theoretical doesn't really, you know, make the kind of impact that one desires. So wherever possible, the experiential aspect of education is very, very important.
Yeah, yeah. I'm looking here at Norbert's photograph and being reminded of his work on trans rationality. So where we need the rational, and we are rational beings, but the rationality alone isn't enough. We also need the transcendence. We need to think to the wisdom traditions and to other ways of knowing that aren't to do with rationality. So we need to do both, and we need to find ways of
balance.
Of balancing those two. So could we open up to questions or comments? I'm so excited because I can see here we have Lebanon, we have Japan, we have Berlin, we have Australia,
Wow.
we have America, we have Poland squared, actually. We have India, and I think we also have China. And so, and I may have left somebody out, but we have the globe represented here. How do these debates resonate in your context? Adelaide.
Sorry, it became very loud where I am, so I'm just gonna maybe pop in a question. But I was just wondering, we also have Italy, so half Italy.
Half
1.5 full.
Fantastic. Okay. So are you posting oh, and Sudan.
Ah, okay.
From from Sarah. Sahar. Fantastic. But also in Cambridge. So Adelaide asks, is there a possibility to teach empathy in a way that it doesn't become an empty concept? Could you say a little bit more, Adelaide, about what you mean by an empty concept? Do you mean just kind of theoretical again?
They're doing something work that I didn't expect here in the room. But basically, yeah, I was thinking more like, I don't know how to say that, but like,
Sorry, that's your voice
sorry,
is breaking.
Can you hear me well? Yeah, sorry, I would just pop in the question because it's just very long.
Okay, thanks, Adelaide. Thank you. So the teaching of empathy. Do you have?
I think you can. I don't know if you can teach empathy. I think you can inspire empathy by example. And that again is, it's not some, I mean, of course it needs to happen in the classroom, but it also needs to happen in all spheres of life. And I don't know how you can kind of orchestrate that, but as far as possible, every individual that is involved, if one can, work towards inspiring through example. But sometimes I think you can also, all right, I can give you one example of how we would address, in a workshop, if we were doing a workshop, for example. So this is something, the project that I mentioned that we were running with the Calcutta Police. So the police runs non-formal schools for street and slum children within the police stations in the city. And their idea is to, get them into the education system and eventually keep them away from crime, right? So they tie up with NGOs who provide the reading, the writing, the arithmetic. And we were one of their partners, and we were doing our peaceworky thing, whatever it is over there. And we thought that we just need these kids to have some fun. So it was a storytelling project. And so you completely volunteer based, because we were working in 10 different police stations, and the volunteers would go in and we would get together once a month, pick stories that we want narrated to the, children there. And then some sort of a discussion amongst ourselves of how would we discuss the story further, and ask them to ask questions and bring up issues and so on and so forth. So we found that there was a lot of aggression within those classrooms. Simple things like snatching each other's pencil boxes and books and things like that. And we were kind of struggling with how do we, how do you address this? Particularly for an audience that is coming from the kind of background these are homeless kids. They're sleeping with their parents on the pavements. They are witnessing crime, violence, so on and so forth. And the last thing you want to do is to tell them that this is right and that is wrong and so on and so forth, right? So we started playing games with them. And one of the games that we used to play is, this is something very popular in Indian homes, birthday parties, what is called the koi bag. Angana would know this, I think. So you have this huge kind of a balloon which is filled with toys, and the child whose birthday is being celebrated breaks that balloon, and the toys are scattered. And all the other kids are kind of clamoring to see whatever they can grab, etc. So we would do that after finishing our session. And then we would start talking to them about, let's see what you got, how much did you get? And then you find that, some children haven't managed to get anything because everybody's aggression level is not the same, right? So then we would kind of veer the conversation around, would you like to share something with this friend of yours, and so on and so forth. So this is one example of, the practice of doing things in a certain way, where we hope that we kind of at least introduce certain values. So this is what I mean when I say inspire.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Okay, so we have 10 minutes left, and I think we're going to need to finish on time today.
Yeah.
So
I am just longing to know about everybody's work, every person who's here.
I had a question, like, till everyone else can either. Yeah, someone has raised their hand. I think they should.
Abhishek, yeah.
Yeah, Abhishek, you go ahead then.
Sorry. Hi, my name is Abhishek, and you spoke about the 2002 riots. So I'm currently in Ahmedabad, and I'm from Ahmedabad. So Ahmedabad was the place where the riots took place. And I was just wondering, when you talk about religious harmony, communal harmony, how do you go about discussing that in an environment as polarized as it is today? That's one question. And another is, how does your own religious identity, your own caste, class identity play a role in how you think what is the right way to approach it? And what kind of reflexivity would you exercise when you work in these areas?
Okay. How do we bring in this environment? How do we bring in these conversations is what I'd like to address first, which is that it just so happens that history becomes the best vehicle, actually, It becomes the most convenient vehicle because I mean, if I presume that your schooling has been in India, right? So you know what the narratives in our history textbooks are, right? Everything bad that has ever happened in this region is because of the Muslims, right? The Mughals and the Muslims and the invaders and the looters and so on and so forth. So we, what we are focusing on doing is that because it's such a singular narrative also, and even the pedagogy of history teaching in the country still, and I'm generalizing over here because there are some schools and some teachers who are doing fantastic work, but they're doing it independent of the system. Whereas the system is still following the rote learning and dates and, memorizing and then answering your question paper methodology. So we pick up pertinent topics out of the textbook, which lend themselves to the kind of discussions on religious difference or difference of any kind that we want to bring into our work. And we develop alternate resources. which will probably never get into the mainstream because we don't have the capacity to work with policy and so on and so forth. But these are teaching resources that the teacher who wishes to bring multi-perspectives into the classrooms can fall back on. And we do workshops around these so that teachers can also, and they are basically, because we are not, none of us over here is a historian, but we have a team, we have an advisory board who are educators, history educators, and we obviously go back to them each time. And we do a lot of research and we put together ideas, activity ideas that use the arts, that use literature, and they complement the historical narrative. And so this is how we bring these conversations into our work. In this current environment, we hold conferences where we bring diverse, we bring scholars, we bring textbook writers. These conferences are geared only for school teachers. And it's, there's this huge gap between school teachers and academics in this country. So the conferences also serve as a platform for bridging those gaps. So these are some examples. And as far as bringing, where I'm situated, well, I come from the region where you come from. I've never lived there, of course. I grew up in a very kind of non-religious kind of environment, and a very, very extremely, for lack of any other word, I will say secular kind of environment. So it's never been a problem for me to kind of, draw a line between what my own personal beliefs are and the work I do. It's completely seamlessly aligned. So
can I just break in at this point and say, I'm really sorry, but people are hovering outside my door. I've got interviews starting at 2 o'clock, and so I'm going to need to set up for my next meeting. So sadly, I'm going to have to leave in a moment. But please don't let me stop you from continuing this very, very rich conversation. I'm sure that Meena would love to hear. Oh, we also have Myanmar represented as well.
Oh, how wonderful. That's where I grew up, by the way.
Okay, so we have many different contexts here, which it'd be so lovely to put them in conversation. I'm going to have to go. I just want to
I'll take over. Yeah.
Huge gratitude. Thank you so much. And
thank you so much. I really thoroughly enjoyed this. Thank you very, very much for having me. Thank you.
Bye, Hilary. Thank you. So I think, Abhishek, your additional question of, are these ideas publicly available? So yeah, History for Peace does have a newsletter. We have
a website where everything that we do is uploaded.
So we have all the information about that on the CPERG events page, where we have today's conversation listed. But maybe in our next email, we can also circulate the History for Peace newsletter email ID. So if anyone's interested, they can sign up for that as well. There's one question that I can see from Sahar. The question is, Sahar, would you like to read it out yourself, or do you want me to?
Sorry, because it's just a bit loud here. So I was wondering if you've been up to hello?
I'll read it. Yeah. So she's, yeah, thanks. She's asking that I'm curious about the knowledge transfer or exchange from and to the Seagull Foundation. That is, have your initiatives been tailored to context beyond India? And she's actually thinking aloud when she's typing that if such activities can be implemented in Sudan and beyond.
Yeah, I think, of course, our work is very much focused around the subcontinent. That's India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. But all of it, if you take a look at our website, and if you take a look at some of the, material there and resources, it's fairly universal. And it can be adapted to any context. Of course, we would not be able to do it ourselves, but in collaboration, because, one needs to have an understanding of local context always. But it's because it isn't, nothing that we do is like watertight. it's very open and quite universal. So it's very much a possibility, and I'm happy to, have a longer conversation with you one-to-one.
Yeah, thanks, Meena. I think Ellis has shared that there's a Parallel Histories UK-based organization, so you can.
Yes, I have heard of them, but we've never kind of connected with them directly.
Well, I'll just break in quickly to say, so we help chair something called the Peace Education Network in the UK, and we do periodic skill shares, and we'll probably be hosting one online in the autumn now with Parallel History. So you're very welcome to join, all of you, wherever you are. I'll put my email in the chat if people want to follow up on that. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ellis.
Lovely, thank you.
Razan, go ahead. You have a question?
Yeah, thank you. Honestly, it's a fascinating conversation that I have so many questions, but I'm just going to narrow them down to one, which I'm particularly curious about, because we're talking a lot about sustainability, about long term, and also about focusing on these teachers who, in a way, by changing something fundamental in them, the effect starts off on the students. But I'm very curious about, how do you keep in touch with those teachers, in the sense, do they form somehow a community, do they become agents that translate or transfer this knowledge that they have gained to other teachers, or is it just going to be them and the students, and sometimes they meet up in conferences?
Yes. Losing battle, but I'll tell you what we do towards this. Yes, teachers also often train other teachers, and we, as whenever possible, we organize those trainings. Because but that, of course, is very becomes geographically limited, because one of the things that we are, with all the advantages of online seminars, we still prefer the offline connect, because there is so much that happens there in terms of interactions, which is simply not possible online. But having said that, we do organize online sessions where we invite teachers who have been part of our project to become facilitators for other teachers. That's one. The second thing is that, yes, they do meet up. We have some regulars who, who at the conferences, and, they exchange notes, etc. Now, the reason why I said losing battle is, you see, we've built the website. I put the website link onto the website is built in such a way that the conversations need to go beyond us, right? So if you sign up on the website, you can connect with other members on the website. There's a space there where you can start your own group discussion. You can post, if you're a teacher and you're using innovative methods in your classroom, there's room on the website to be able to just post that. So we've constructed this in this manner, but it's not being used. We have about 500 or 600 teachers who've signed up as members, but after signing up, they don't do anything except, downloading the resources. They're not actively kind of, and this is something we're struggling with. You're from Lebanon, right?
Right. And we're building the website right now. So this is so relevant.
Okay. Well, we're working with the Lebanon History Teachers Association, by the way, through Euroclio, the European History Teachers Association has a global alliance group of 8 regions across the country, and History for Peace is part of it, and so is the Lebanon History Teachers Association.
Yeah, I mean, our history ends off as soon as Lebanon is formulated. So Lebanon exists, and then they're like, yeah, we can't talk more about that because there's too much conflict going on, so we don't know which side to illustrate or talk about. So it just
Our
ends
history-
there. So
Our
yeah.
history ends at 1947. Yeah.
Thanks, Razan. So I think Ria left, but she just
Yeah,
wrote
I
that she
think
would like.
I'm going to also have to leave in another 5 minutes or so.
We will close in 2 minutes. So what I'll do is I'll maybe fix up a call with Ria sometime, because she's also from India, and we can see, Meena, if we can take the conversation forward.
Absolutely.
Maybe if
Yeah.
both of us can contribute in some way in one of the conferences, or maybe start a reading group if that is
Wonderful.
helpful. So I'll fix up a call if that's okay later and speak to you about it. Okay. I think Angie's shared that similar work that she's been involved in for several years in Rwanda, where they use WhatsApp group for teachers to keep in touch and contribute ideas and share. They seem much more, yeah, okay.
Right, yeah. Okay, this is something that we should look into. Thank you.
Thanks
Angie.
for the suggestion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much. It's been...
Okay, great. Yeah. So I just wanted to we wanted to thank you, Meena. Thank you so much for doing this. I think we really had participation from all across the world after a really long time for an event like this. And
amazing.
Yeah, I mean, we are so grateful for you to come and share all the ideas. And I think we'll keep the conversation growing. We'll see how we can contribute in the network and what we can do forward. I know Abhishek, me, Ria, we are based in India, so we can think of something that we can curate and do, which is more.
That'd be wonderful.
Yeah. And the others who are there who really so patiently joined and listened in today, I've shared the link of the website and resources both in the chat box. And there's a lot of information on our website as well on this events page. So you can go there and you can just write to Meena if you feel there's something that you want to follow up or ask or discuss further. So feel free to.
Here's my email.
Yeah, she's given her email as well. Great.
And Seher, I would love to have a longer chat with you.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Meena. Have a good evening, part of night. Yeah, whatever is left for the day.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Meena. Thank you so much. Thank you, Angana. Thank you all for coming. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, everyone.